Hello and thanks for stopping by. Today we'll be discussing how to get system monitor widgets in AwesomeWM. And for this tutorial we will also be discussing how to get the volume widget as well as the internet widget. And the first widget we'll be discussing is the internet widget. Now, I'm not one that needs to know my upload speed and my download speed, but if you do need to know that stuff, since I don't have my own code to provide to you today, I would suggest going to StreetTurtle's widgets and installing those into your config. They have a great widget for that. I've already tried it and it works just as well as it should. But let's say you don't need to know your upload speed and your download speed. Let's say the only thing that you need to know is how to get to your internet settings. Or in general, let's just say you need to know whether or not you have internet going. And for that, I would run it in my system tray, and the best way to run it in your system tray is to use a app called nm-applet. And as you can see here, I have nm-applet in my auto start application, so that way it starts every time my computer starts. The only problem is that anytime that I've done awful.spawn.once or any other derivative, the thing that it does is that it starts every time I reload AwesomeWM. So I don't know a fix for that. If you guys could let me know in the comments, that'd be great. But getting back to nm-applet, you may not be able to see it because of the color of my Wii bar, but there is an icon here. In fact, if I hover over it, it tells me that I have Ethernet network connection, wired connection 1 active. And what you can do is that if you left click on it, it shows you all your devices, whether it's Wi-Fi networks or Ethernet networks that you can connect to, and you just press it and what have you, and you can also set up your VPN connection. If you right click on it, you can enable stuff like your networking, your Wi-Fi, your notifications. You can also find out connection information, edit connections, and about the app. But yeah, I would definitely use nm-applet. It's a game changer as far as your internet configuration goes. The next widget we'll be discussing is the volume widget, and I have placed it under Wii bar in my configuration. And if you don't know where this line is in particular, some context for you is that you should see something called menu bar configuration, keyboard map indicator and switcher, and then you'll see Wii bar. And as you can see here, I've already got a few widgets down. Like I've got create a text clock widget, I've got my app button widget, I've got my power widget, I've got my weather widget. And if this code looks familiar to you, it's because I did a video in the past in which I was telling people how to get the weather widget working in AwesomeWM. Back then, I did not make it into a button because I did not see a need to make it into a button. But then I thought on it a little bit and I was like, hey, I really do need to make this into a button because whenever I click on it, I want to be able to access weather.com. And so I made a button to be able to press on the weather so that way I could get to weather.com if I needed to get to it. It's just a much faster way instead of me going into a new tab and just typing in weather.com when all I have to do is just click on the weather and it takes me there. Right here I have my volume widget and I have my variable set to my volume, and it's going to be equal to awful.widget.watch. And we're going to watch this widget in particular because we're going to be pulling from bash, and we're going to have a refresh rate of every 1 second. And the reason we're going to have a refresh rate is because if you decide to make changes within your application or whatever, if you have something like pulse audio volume control or something of that nature, and you make any changes to it or you make any changes in your command line, then you're going to want to make sure that it updates it every time in your Wii bar. And the way that we do that is we have a refresh rate of every 1 second, so that way it updates it. And this code right here, my God, was it difficult. And the reason I say it was difficult was because I was bashing my head against the wall because people did not have this format. But there is a format that you have to follow in order for this widget to work. You can't just put bash-c PA mixer. No, you have to put bash in double quotations, you have to put -c in double quotations, and then you have to put your PA mixer in double quotations. So right here, what I've got is bash-c, they're in their own quotations, and then I have PA mixer in its own quotations. So let's take a look at this PA mixer command that we have here. I have PA mixer --get volume. We've got a pipe, awk, and then we got single quotes, open curly bracket, print F, backslash double quotes, and the reason we're doing a backslash is because it does not like dealing with more than one set of quotation marks. So we have to have a backslash in order for it to register. So right here, we'll do backslash double quote %D backslash double quote comma $1 close curly bracket single quote, and I think that should be it. Just make sure that it looks right in your editor here. And this is the part that I want to discuss. I want to discuss this formatting here, and I want to discuss what this $1 is. So this $1 is your value. In other words, the value that you get from PA Mixer --get volume, that is what your $1 is. So let me show you what happens whenever you enter PA Mixer --get volume into the terminal. So PA Mixer --get volume. If I could type it correctly. Alright, so you're going to get a value, and this value is going to be the percentage of your volume. And right now we're at 100% volume. So let's go ahead and close out of that. And let me scroll back up here because it made it all wonky. So that is what your $1 is that value that you get from your terminal. And the reason why I wanted to wait until now to discuss this is because I have a specific formatting. Because what awk does is that it takes that value that you get from the terminal and it formats it into however you want it formatted. And so what I have here is that I have a volume icon, I have a space, and then %D. And %D is going to be this $1. It's just done in a way that you can format it. And then after that %D, I have a % value. So if you take a look at my wee bar up here now, it reflects that there is a volume icon, there's a space, and then you have 100 as the value, and then you have a % sign. And it reflects it right here. So that's the reason why I wanted to specifically point that out. It's because some of you may not understand, because you can go in and just have %D in the double quotation marks, or you can format it like I did. It doesn't really matter. And so now we've come to a tricky part, and the tricky part is to get it to do something on a button press. This is why we wanted to make this into a button and not just some one-line code, because I could make this into a one-line code. I don't even have to have this variable, but I do it because I want to be able to press a button. So what we're going to do is put my volume :connect _signal. We're going to put all of this in parentheses, by the way. So go ahead and make your parentheses, and then you put this in double quotation marks as button : press, and this lets us know that our button is going to be something that we press. We'll put a comma, space, then we'll put function, and then we're going to put this in parentheses here. We're going to put a C, comma, underscore, comma, button. And you definitely want button as a value, because we're going to be calling it right here. So anything that's in here in particular, those are the variables that we'll be calling on, and we'll be calling on it from this function right here. So basically what this is here, this if button equals 4, basically if I scroll up, then it's going to launch this command here. If I scroll down, it's going to launch this command. And if I left click on it, it's going to launch this command. So basically the way I've got this set up is if button equals 4, then we're going to awful.spawn, and what we're going to do is that we're going to call on Pactal in our command. And we're going to say Pactal set-sync-volume at default _ at, and then +1. Now this value can be changed to +50 or +1 or +10, whatever increment you want to do, that's up to you. But we have it set to spawn Pactal here. Same thing goes for this command down here, except we're doing -1, which you could do -50, you could do -10, it really doesn't matter. But the fact of the matter is that when you scroll up, you want it to go up a certain value. And if you scroll down, then you want it to go down a value. But then when you left click on it, you want to be able to toggle the mute. And so here we have awful.spawn, in which we use Pactal to set the sync mute. And the sync mute is toggled. So when you click on it once, it mutes it, and if you click on it again, it unmutes it. and then we end it, and then we end it again. In other words, we end the if statement, and then we also end the function. So a couple of things to note here about the volume widget is that I don't have a way for it to indicate whether or not it's muted. The other thing I would say is that this is extremely slow as far as button pressing goes. It can take anywhere from 3 to 5 seconds to load the correct percentage, but it makes the change very fast. Like when you scroll down, it scrolls it down automatically, but you won't know what the percentage is until 3 to 5 seconds later. So although it is very slow, this is coding that you can do on your own. And the button pressing isn't even something that you have to have. But I have it because I like to be able to control my volume from my WeBar. Now once you've typed out your volume widget button, what you're going to want to do is go to s.mywebox:setup, which is where you'll add the widgets to the WeBox. And wherever you decide to put it, it doesn't really matter if it's the left, the middle, or the right widgets. Whichever one you decide to put it in, go ahead and put in that variable, my volume, and then put a comma and you should be good to go. For our next widget, we'll be discussing the CPU widget. And since we don't have a reason to make it into a button, we're just going to put it in our right widgets. And what we're going to put is awful.widget.watch. We're going to put bash in double quotes, comma, and then we're going to put -c in double quotes, comma, and then we're going to put this line right here. This line right here is vmstat12. We're going to pipe that into tail -1. Then we're going to pipe that into awk, and then we're going to print this value here, whatever the value that comes out from 100 minus 15. And don't worry, I know that this is probably a lot of information. I will go more into depth here. So let me show you what happens whenever we do vmstat12. So vmstat12 gives us 2 rows. And what we want out of this is one of the rows. So that's the reason why we use tail, is because we want to minus one of the rows here, so that way we only get 1 row. So let me show you what that looks like if we do, like if we pipe it into tail -1. See, it just gives us the 1 line here. And that's what we want. We just want 1 line. And so for this 1 line, what we're doing here is that we're trying to figure out where we want to get our value from. And our value is going to come from this ID here. And so as you can see, this value is 55. This is the value that we want to get. And so we count all the way to ID. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It is number 15. So in our awk, we're going to put 15 right here. It's $15. But we're going to minus that from 100. And the reason why we want to do that is because we want to get the current percentage that our CPU is running at. Because as of right now, it is getting what we have left. And if you're the type of person that wants to know how much you have left rather than how much you've used, by all means, don't minus it from 100. You can just leave it as $15. But we put this expression in here so that we can get how much has already been used. And as we did in the volume widget, I made sure to do my little format here. So I put like a CPU chip as an icon for it, space, %D, %. And it reflects up here in this WeBar as such. And remember that %D is the $15 value. And we want to refresh this every 1 second. Next up on the list is our memory widget, also known as RAM. And again, we don't have a reason to make this into a button, so we're just going to put this in our widgets. So we're going to put awful.widget.watch. We're going to put bash in double quotes. We're going to put -c in double quotes. But this time we're going to do things a little bit differently with this. This time we're going to use free instead of vmstat. But we're going to do free -m pipe into grep, where we pull from the memory line. We're going to pipe that into awkward and make our text all fancy. So again, I'm going to go through this step by step. Don't worry about it. So what happens when you enter free -m? Anybody? Anybody? All right. So this is what happens when you type in free -m. You're going to get memory and you're going to get swap. And this is all allocated in megabytes. So as you can see here, I have about 14,000 megabytes total of memory. I've used over 8,000 megabytes. But let's take a look at what grep does. Grep is going to take one of these lines, and that's what we want. We want only one of these lines. And so with grep, and remember how it doesn't like to use double quotations too much? This is why we put a backslash. We put a backslash so that way it would register that this is the code that we want it to run. But we want to specifically pull from the memory line. So the way that we do that, let me show you what that looks like. When we do free-m, and then we pipe that into grep, and then we do memory, just like that. It gives us just this one line, and this is the one line that we want. Now let's take a look at awkward. So what we're going to do as far as awkward goes, let's look at our expression here. Our expression is $3 divided by $2 times 100. And so what this does is that memory is line 1, this 13,878 is line 2, and this 8,075 is line 3. And what we want to do is we want to divide this number by this number, and it gives us a value. And then we times that by 100. So that's why we have this expression set up, is that we want our used to be divided by our total. And then, as I said before, we times it by 100. And once again, we have our little formatting here. This time we have a memory stick space %d with a % sign, and it's reflected in the wee bar here. The last widget we'll be going over is our disk widget. And our disk widget is going to be a similar setup as our CPU and our memory widget. The only difference is that we'll be calling on df. So for this line here, we have awful.widget.watch. We have it calling from bash. We use -c, and then we use this line here, df-H, and then we specify where our location is for our hard drive, and then we grep that because we want to get the row of our hard drive, and then we're going to use awkward to make our text all pretty. So again, I know it's a lot, but let me go over how you're supposed to do this. So what happens when I do df-H? So df-H. We're going to get all of these file systems here. And the one that you're going to want to look for is where it's mounted on. So the reason why my code says /dev/sda2 is because it is in our home directory, or our slash directory rather. So this line right here, this is the one that we want, so that way it can accurately tell us how much disk space we have left. And the way that we do that is df-H, then we're going to pipe that into grep. We're going to put this in double quotations. Then we're going to put /dev/sda2. And it gives us just this one line here. And the next thing you're going to want to do is some math. Yes, that's right. So where's this $5? Anybody? Anybody? Alright, let me tell you where the $5 is. So dev SDA2 is $1. And this is 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this 30% is number 5. And this is the one that we want in order for us to figure out how much disk space we have left. So what we do is we subtract 30 from 100. Because here it says 30. Then we're going to subtract this by 100. And if you look at our bar up here, our wee bar, it says 70%. So the math is accurate on that. And in awk, the way that we format it, or at least the way that I formatted it, is that I put in a hard disk icon here, space %d%. And that %d is our $5. Only this is the variable that you need whenever you're trying to format it. And we have now come full circle. Congratulations, you're now able to have system monitor widgets in AwesomeWM. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in another video.